Imagine walking into a pharmacy and discovering that the same medication costs you 3 times more than it does in Canada or Germany. For instance, a month's supply of the diabetes drug Humalog costs around $275 in the US, while it's only $32 in Canada and $55 in Germany. This price disparity isn't unique to Humalog. It's a widespread issue affecting millions of Americans who rely on prescription medications. But now the Trump administration is considering a bold move to change that, reviving the most favored nation (MFN) model to tie U.S. drug prices to those in other wealthy countries. So, what exactly is this model? In simple terms, it's a policy that would cap Medicare payments for certain high-cost drugs at the lowest price paid by comparable countries, adjusted for purchasing power. The goal is to prevent Americans from paying more for medications than patients in nations like France, the UK, or Japan. The concept isn't new. It's been used in international trade agreements for decades to ensure countries don't discriminate against each other's goods. In the context of drug pricing, it would create a level playing field by ensuring the US doesn't pay more than other rich nations. This isn't the first time the MFN model has been on the table. Back in 2020, the Trump administration introduced a similar plan, but it was halted by a federal court before it could take effect. The court ruled that the administration hadn't followed proper procedures, highlighting the legal and procedural challenges of such a move. The reasons for the plan's halt included both technical flaws in its rollout and strong opposition from the pharmaceutical industry, which feared revenue losses. Now, with a renewed focus on reducing drug costs, the administration is revisiting the idea, exploring ways to implement it through executive action or legislation. There are several possible paths to bring the MFN model to life. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, could pilot it via its Innovation Center, which has the authority to test new payment approaches under the Affordable Care Act. This would allow the administration to test the policy on a smaller scale before broader implementation. The advantage of this approach is its flexibility, but the downside is that the Innovation Center's authority isn't unlimited, and a pilot program must be carefully designed to avoid legal challenges. Alternatively, Congress could pass new laws to enforce international price referencing. This would provide a more permanent and comprehensive solution, but it would also require navigating the complex and often contentious legislative process. Historically, the pharmaceutical industry has wielded significant influence in Congress, which could further complicate this approach. Regardless of the path chosen, both are fraught with challenges. One major hurdle is the complexity of aligning U.S. drug prices with those in other countries. Not all medications are approved or reimbursed abroad, and many nations keep their negotiated drug prices confidential. This lack of transparency makes it difficult to establish accurate benchmarks for comparison. For example, some countries may negotiate lower prices for certain drugs in exchange for higher prices on others, or they may use entirely different pricing models. Legal obstacles also loom large. Critics argue that implementing international price controls could violate the Commerce Clause of the U.S. Constitution, which regulates trade between states and with foreign nations. Additionally, pharmaceutical companies are likely to push back, fearing that such measures could undermine their profits and stifle innovation. Indeed, the pharmaceutical industry contends that high U.S. drug prices are essential for funding research and development. They warn that capping prices could lead to fewer new treatments and delayed access to cutting-edge therapies. Some even suggest that companies might respond by raising prices in other countries or withdrawing their products from less profitable markets. But not everyone agrees with this argument. Some experts point out that many breakthrough drugs are developed with public funding or through collaborations with academic institutions. They also argue that the pharmaceutical industry spends more on marketing and administrative costs than on research and development, challenging the idea that high prices are the only way to drive innovation. Despite this resistance, proponents of the MFN model highlight potential cost savings. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that tying Medicare drug prices to international rates could save billions of dollars over the next decade. These savings could be redirected to other healthcare initiatives, such as expanding access to medical services or reducing the costs of other treatments. For instance, the funds could be used to finance programs that provide free or low-cost medications to low-income patients, or to invest in research on rare diseases. Still, the impact on patients remains uncertain. While lower drug prices could ease financial burdens for many, there's a risk that access to certain medications could be limited if manufacturers choose to pull back. For example, some companies might stop selling certain drugs in the US if they can't maintain their current profit margins, potentially leading to shortages or delays in access to new treatments. Moreover, the MFN model could have global repercussions. If the US successfully pressures other countries to pay more for drugs, it could disrupt existing healthcare systems and lead to higher costs for patients abroad. This raises ethical questions about the US's role in the global pharmaceutical landscape. Should the US prioritize its own cost savings at the expense of patients in other countries? Ultimately, the debate over the MFN model underscores the complexities of drug pricing policy. It's a tug of war between cost containment and innovation, domestic priorities, and international dynamics. As the Trump administration weighs its options, the stakes are high for patients, providers, and policymakers alike. What do you think? Should the US tie its drug prices to those of other countries, or is there a better way to make medications more affordable without compromising innovation? Share your thoughts in the comments below.